I strongly believe traveling opens up your third eye, right? I know a lot of you guys heard of that term, third eye. You may relate to that term. It sounds kind of mystic and maybe kind of cryptic, but what I'm trying to say is, and what I mean to say is, rather, you know, it gets your mind open, right? Like, you know, it's crazy that we only use like 8 or 10% of our brain. Some people, if that. The geniuses, right? People whose IQs is off the charts and, maybe can speak tens of different languages and, you know, stuff like that. Maybe they use 15 to 20% of their brain. But, you know, from a scientific approach, we can't really tap into, you know, what we really should know. You know what I'm saying? And I think traveling can be one of the best ways to do that because it forces us out of a situation, right? I mean, yes, nobody forces you to go anywhere. So you kind of have to take a leap of faith on your own, from whatever, decision that was made or from whatever, triggered the move, right? Short term, long term. But traveling, it puts you in an environment to continually be uncomfortable, right? It puts you in an environment to know how to adapt to different people, different religions, cultures, ways of customs and designs, currencies, languages, speech and mannerisms, you know, um, and just overall different thought processes, which for some, a lot, or maybe most can be overwhelming. But for the select few, it could be really challenging um, to do, yet very rewarding, right? Because it allows you to, be humble about any situation you're going through, which is pretty motivating. Um, and then it allows you to, put yourself in the right position to, open doors for yourself and for others, put yourself in a position to excel somewhere in your life and to excel the life for others. People travel and start, people do mission trips, out the country or, overseas or whatever. People open up establishments, right? Which is starting their own business, getting their brand out there, right? Ultimately, getting another way to keep themselves and or their family afloat, but it gives people another place to reconcile for the week. It gives people a place to shop. You're putting in, you know, resources, finances into the economy of another country that you're not from, right? Maybe more on the extreme sides of, you know, giving back and taking in. Um, but, the education and diversity is different from not just America, but from just one way of thinking and one way of being in a certain environment, under a certain rule or under a certain, type of magistrate, you know. So traveling is dope. It's something that I would move everybody to do. Not relocate and or travel full time, just, every couple years. If it's possible to do it once a year, you do it where you go somewhere new, right? Growth happens. Like if you think about weightlifting or running, like, weightlifting, um, that aesthetic is with, you know, um, hypertrophy. Maybe saying it wrong, right? But we're breaking down the muscle to build it up. With, running, jogging, you're opening up your VO2 max, right? You're extending that rib cage and all that, right? So it's painful to go through, but you do it long term, you do it consistently, right? You get stronger, right? And in a cardiovascular sense, it's the same approach, right? Like it takes a little investment, it takes a little time, it takes some comfort, and it takes like a change of mind, to just put yourself out there a little bit in a different space, even if it's for a few days, right? But you do that continually, man, your mind starts transforming, right? You start not believing that you don't have to be prejudiced. You know, like being in one spot, right? It promotes a default sense of prejudice. It promotes a default sense of racism sometimes, guys. Like it promotes that, hey, you know, like I'm in an area where either people look like me or people think like me, and if I see something different, that's a problem, you know. So, you know, it's massive, you know, the way that, you know, how, or it's massive that how, like, you know, people can control your environment without you even really knowing, and sometimes without them even knowing. I think there's people who do, you know, who have agendas, of course, but like without really understanding why certain things happen, guys, like we just keep doing the same stuff, you know. Like everything, you know, that happens from a negative standpoint comes from a sense of self environmental factors. I've been here for this place, I've just done this, you know, and that's what I'm used to. So traveling really, it opens up your third eye, guys. It puts you in a different situation, especially if you could diversify different places to go to, even if you're staying there for a couple of days, guys. You know, so make it happen this year somehow, or whatever you see this video, whatever year you're in, make it happen. Get out there and see something, you know, because the world, like, guys, not even from a human perspective, right? Just the world is naturally beautiful. Like it's naturally beautiful, and I want to see as much as I can of it. So get out there and go see something.